welcome to the Aprilia track review. This has been a long time coming, I think, but we're out here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. I did the first 3 sessions this morning on the Gixxer, and now we're going to take the Aprilia out and see what it's like. I'm excited, but I will say this probably isn't the best track to test a bike like this, but at the same time it'll give us a good idea of what kind of turns she can do, how heavy she actually is, and then hopefully maybe get to try out that quick shifter. So stay tuned. Well, hey, thanks for being here and looking at this track review that isn't so much of a track review anymore on the Aprilia here. It's more of a crash review. We're out here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. One thing I'll say, Atlanta Motorsports Park isn't really built for the leader bikes, which I knew that before we went out and rode, but that's how it turned out. So we were coming into turn 13 and lost the front end and had a low side. That all being said, the bike actually survived pretty well. A little bit of fairing damage and whatnot, but mechanically she's sound. So the only things I wanted to say is, like, I've been riding a Gixxer at the track for a few years now, and I took this out there this morning after riding the Gixxer, so I was already used to the track, had the feel of it, and I felt more of the bumps and more of the gravel and more of the road on this than I ever have on the Gixxer, which this is supposed to have a little bit softer suspension setup, and shouldn't have been feeling all that. So I don't know if my tire pressure was too high or what that might have been. Things I will say, the whole time it kind of actually just felt a little unstable, and I had some electronics on and everything else, but all in all, great track bike. She handled the wreck pretty well, but not quite the outcome we were looking for. We'll get it repaired and try and do a track review again at another track later on. And for now, we're gonna get this home and take it apart, figure out what all we need to do, put it all back together, and then we'll meet you guys out there later. Check out JK Moto Podcast for a little more on the bike and on Atlanta Motorsports Park. Thanks for being here.
So the question is, how did I wreck my $20,000 2019 Aprilia RSV4 1100 factory? So I was out riding at Atlanta Motorsports Park. I'll start off with saying that is not the best track for a bike like this. I spent the first 3 sessions in the morning on the Gixxer. It's a Gixxer 750 2008. I did pretty well out there, but even that bike was honestly a little out of its class out there. The track's only 2 miles, super technical, a lot of just turns, almost no straights in between. So not the best place to test an 1100 V4 with over 200 horsepower. I knew that after the morning sessions, and I still wanted to get this track review done. So we went out to do that. I stuck the 360 cam on the back, and we have the 360 cam, we have the footage, but unfortunately the file is corrupted. So I'm working to get that fixed. Hopefully I can get that out for you guys so you can see at least some of what it was like on the track and see the wreck footage. We'll go over in this video how much damage we have. It's actually pretty minimal. I was coming out of turn 12 into turn 13. So you go down a hill, you come up a hill, you take a slight right, or a pretty sharp right actually, and then a left, and it's an off-camber left going down a hill into a big sweeping left. And right when I took that left is when I low-sided the bike, lost the front end, slipped out. I was on the asphalt and the bike went into the grass. So I'll start off by saying what a bike, honestly, what a bike. Lots of power. She makes power from 3,000 RPM all the way up, about the same amount the whole time. And you could feel that. You could feel that out there. I was riding in track mode, traction control on. Actually, I haven't switched any settings, so we'll go ahead and see what everything was in. The nice part is mechanically, electronically, everything's still working. So yeah, I was in track mode, automatic traction control at 5, ABS at 3, anti-wheelie control at 1, and launch control at 3. I wasn't using launch control that day. So I do have the aftermarket Öhlins steering damper on here, and I don't remember, I think I have that set reasonably stiff. Okay, to get back into it, feedback. I have never felt so much feedback from a bike. I swear I could almost feel the individual gravel pieces in the asphalt. It was insane. I'm not sure if that's due to tighter suspension. I've had the suspension tuned by a shop out in Washington, and it was tuned more on the street side, so it should have been softer with a little bit of track riding in mind. But the gentleman that tuned it for me even told me, you know, you might need to have that stiffened up when you do your first track down. You might want it stiffened up halfway through the day or something like that. Tire pressures were set at 30 and 30. We're on Metzler's. They can't be that old, so I'm not sure if that's just how the Aprilia is. But the feedback was there. I could feel all the cracks, all the bumps, stuff that I couldn't feel in the Gixxer all morning. I was noticing out on the track, which is nice to a degree, just not used to it, so a little different. The way I lost the front end, I'm not sure. I've been thinking about it ever since it happened. Not exactly sure. I'm guessing that I just had a little bit too much lean angle right at the beginning without having the front end fully on the ground. Something along those lines. I'm not an amazing rider, not the best guy to be out there testing this bike, but I think that's about what happened. The nice things I'll give this bike, obviously the electronics, the clutchless up and down shifting is awesome. It's amazing. If you haven't tried it on a bike, go test drive one at least. Very worth it. And then the other thing I'll say is that this tank shape. So this tank comes all the way back and then down. And it's got this nice big wide surface to hook your leg on. So when you're riding out on the track, you can really get that outside leg hooked. You get a lot of surface area there to keep it and to stay on the bike, to bring the bike down over you. Both those things. It's very good at that. So I'm excited to get her put back together. Get her back out on the track again. We're gonna test it somewhere different next time, somewhere she can stretch her legs a little more and really get the full feel for what an 1100 is like. And we'll see what changes I make to see if that feedback's there again, or if that was just kind of a weird hiccup. The only other thing that I'll mention is that electronic throttles. They make it nice because they give you the ability to have the clutchless up and down shifting, but they can be interesting in the middle of a turn. So when you come into your turn, you're on the brakes, and then you go to get back on the gas, and if you're getting back on the gas to stand the bike up and and ride out, it's not bad. But if it's a longer turn where you have some maintenance throttle and you're not really giving it full gas, the electronic throttles, for whatever reason, I always have this kind of issue where there's a very distinct on-off point, but it's a super fine line, if that makes any sense. So on the cable throttles that I've ridden, still the distinct on-off point, but once you're on, you're kind of on, and you have to let go of it. The electronic throttles, and I've felt this on this, and then also on an S1000 that I rode in 2010, you kind of get on, and then if you let go at all, it kicks off, and it kicks on, and it kicks off, and it can kind of throw you off in the middle of a turn. Probably something you get used to after a bit, and it's not that big of a deal, but that is just one thing that I noticed. I figured I'd mention it in this review. Leave a comment below. Let me know what other questions you have, what type of content you guys would like to see. I'm sure I'll be filming putting this old girl back together, and we'll get her back out on the track. But that's how I wrecked my $20,000 Aprilia RSV4 1100 factory. Okay, welcome back to the post-crash analysis. I was gonna do a full teardown video on the bike because when I first got back from the wreck, I thought it was in pretty bad shape compared to what it actually is. But I was out here walking around the other day looking at it a little bit and noticed that it wasn't as bad as I initially thought. So, right off the bat, obviously, we have our fairing that came off and broke off in a couple places up there that you can see. And then we scraped the end of our lever. Luckily, those are easily replaceable. It's about $20 for the replacement ends on the CRG RC2s. The bar end got scraped up, also a pretty cheap replacement. And then we broke off our foot peg, and if you look real close, you can see where we scraped out or stripped out the threads in there. Luckily, I have an extra set of rear sets. I have an extra foot peg, so we can either just use a different hole for now or put the extra set on. Beyond that, got a little bit of paint damage on the gas tank fairing on the top, and then also on the side here. It's kind of hard to see in this light, but it's starting to come off. And then our rear cowl actually just broke off of its bracket, but I was able to pick that up. Then up here, the front fairing is cracked. When I first looked at it, I thought I would have to buy a new fairing stay because my LED screen here was kind of loose and just hanging out. But after looking closer, I found this part that was lying in the grass, and it's got a clip on the back of it. The other clip still remaining on the bike, so we'll just need to get a bolt to get that in. That'll hold that in again. And then we're basically just looking at new fairings. The only other damage that I saw was obviously the frame slider is scraped up. That just means it did its job, so we can buy a new one of those if we need to, but I think there's still a decent amount left on there. And then the rear axle bolt itself is a little scraped up on the edge, but I think that'll make it out. We'll come around to the other side, where I didn't really see much damage. So there's a little bit of dirt, and we still got to get her cleaned up, but all in all, not as bad as we initially thought. Come over here and show you the windshield. Obviously, got cracked right there at the top. There's where the fairing broke off. There's a few more fairing pieces that I'm missing. Here's the foot peg, which is actually still intact, so I can't just get a new bolt. You can see where those threads are pretty stripped up. Like I said, we'll either have to use a different hole or just throw my other rear set on. But I will still be able to use that foot peg if I want to. It's a little beat up. After I clean it off, we'll see how much grip I lost on it. And then this is the rear cowl. I don't know if it just took the brunt of the hit, but the cowl itself is actually still perfectly intact. It just broke off of its mounting bracket. So might look into gluing that back on, but I think I'm gonna buy a whole new fairing set, and so I don't quite see the point in doing that. And that about sums up the extent of the damage on the Aprilia.